You ever have one of those days where everything's going fine, until it's not like, in a split second, the world decides to remind you exactly where you stand? That's what happened to Sarah Mitchell, a woman who'd spent her life climbing mountains most folks wouldn't even dare look at, only to get slammed against a concrete pillar in a parking garage, cuffs biting into her wrists, all because two cops decided they didn't like the look of her. This isn't just a story about a bad day, it's about what happens when the system you've served your whole life turns its back on you, and how you fight back without raising your voice. It was a rainy Tuesday in Alexandria, Virginia, just outside D.C., and Sarah was walking through the dim third floor of the Riverside Plaza garage, her boots leaving wet prints on the concrete. She'd just come off a grueling 4-hour briefing at a Department of Defense annex across the street, classified stuff, the kind where you don't even bring your phone into the room. Sarah was a 3-star general in the U.S. Army, the kind of woman who'd stared down warlords in Kabul and briefed senators without breaking a sweat. But right now, she wasn't in her crisp uniform with its rows of ribbons. She was in a navy hoodie, slacks, hair tucked under a cap, trying to blend in, just another tired professional heading to her car. Her mind was still spinning from the briefing, replaying cyber defense strategies, when she heard it boots, heavy, fast, echoing like gunshots in the empty garage. "Hands up now." A voice, sharp and male, cut through the air. Sarah froze, turned slowly, and there they were, two cops, guns drawn, flashlights blinding her. One was older, maybe late 40s, face red like he'd just run up the stairs, his name tag reading Sergeant Dan Carver. The other was younger, twitchy, his hand shaking just enough to make you nervous, name tag saying Officer Ryan Holt. "Step away from the vehicle, ma'am," Holt barked, his voice cracking like he was trying to sound tougher than he felt. Sarah raised her hands, slow, deliberate, her voice calm as a still lake. "Officers, I'm just walking to my car. My name's Sarah Mitchell. I'm a U.S. Army general." Carver didn't even blink, just snapped, "Against the wall, now." No pause, no questions, just orders. Sarah's eyes narrowed, but she complied, stepping toward the nearest pillar, her laptop bag still slung over her shoulder. She tried again. "I just came from a DoD briefing across the street. My ID's in my pocket, you can check it." But Carver was already moving in, grabbing her wrist, twisting it hard behind her back. The bag hit the ground with a dull thud, her military-issue ring scraping the concrete. Sarah winced, not from pain, but from the sheer absurdity of it. "Is this for real?" she muttered, half to herself, her breath fogging against the cold pillar. The cuffs clicked shut, metal biting into her skin, and her ID card Pentagon clearance barcode, and all slipped from her pocket, landing by Carver's boot. He didn't even glance at it. "Got a call about someone messing with cars," Holt said, his voice still shaky, like he was trying to convince himself they were in the right. "You match the description." Sarah's jaw tightened. "I'm walking to my own car," she said, slow, each word measured. "Check the plates, check my ID, I'm not your suspect." But Carver was already rifling through her bag, pulling out her secured military laptop like it was evidence of a crime. "What's this, some kind of spy gear?" he sneered, holding it up. Sarah's voice stayed level, but there was steel in it now. "That's a DoD-issued laptop, serial number on the flap. Scan it, you'll see." He didn't. Instead, he kept digging, tossing her pens, her notepad, her phone onto the ground like they were trash. Holt muttered, "People like you always got a story." Sarah's head snapped up, her eyes locking onto his. "People like me? What's that supposed to mean?" The air got heavy, the kind of heavy that comes when someone says something they can't take back. Holt looked away, but Carver just laughed, low and mean. "Save the attitude, lady." Sarah didn't flinch, didn't yell, didn't give them the reaction they were fishing for. She'd been here before, not in cuffs, but in rooms, in meetings, in moments where people looked at her and saw what they wanted to see. A black woman, not a general, not a leader, just someone who didn't belong. She grew up in a small town in Alabama, a place called Willow Creek, where her grandma used to say, "You gotta be twice as good to get half the respect." Sarah took that to heart. ROTC, West Point, deployments in Iraq, Somalia, Korea. By 42, she was one of the youngest 3-star generals in the Army, a strategist who could outthink anyone in the room. But none of that mattered in this garage, not to these two. They saw a hoodie, dark skin, and a vague 911 call from some nosy neighbor who probably didn't like the look of a black woman near a nice SUV. Sarah's mind was racing, not with fear, but with strategy. How close was the nearest precinct? How long would it take for her alert to go through? Because she'd already pressed the button on her smartwatch, a discreet little device that sent a silent signal to the Pentagon's Joint Command. 1 tap, 2 seconds, and someone, somewhere, was already tracking her location. "You've got about 10 minutes, she said, her voice low, almost conversational, "before this garage gets real busy." Carver snorted, still rummaging through her bag. "You threatening us now?" Sarah didn't smile, didn't blink. "No, I'm telling you. You're making a mistake, and it's going to cost you." Holt shifted, his eyes darting to Carver, then back to Sarah. "Sarge, maybe we should check her ID." Carver shot him a look, pure venom. "Don't go soft on me, kid. She's bluffing." But Sarah wasn't bluffing. She never did. Back in Willow Creek, her dad, a mechanic who'd fixed every tractor in town, taught her one thing. You don't win by shouting, you win by knowing. And Sarah knew the protocol, knew the cameras overhead, knew the signal she'd sent was already lighting up a screen in some Pentagon ops room. The garage was quiet for a moment, just the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant drip of rain. Then, footsteps sharp, deliberate, like a metronome. 3 men in suits rounded the corner, flanked by 2 military police in full gear, their boots clicking in sync. A tall guy with a buzz cut stepped forward, badge gleaming under the lights. "Special Agent Mark Dillon, Department of Defense. Step away from the detainee now." Holt practically jumped back, tripping over Sarah's bag. Carver froze, his hand still on her laptop. Dillon's eyes were ice. Did she resist? Holt shook his head fast. "No, sir," she complied. "Did she identify herself?" Holt nodded, slower this time. "Said she was a general, sir." Dillon's jaw tightened. "And you didn't verify that before cuffing her?" Carver finally spoke, his voice tight. "We were responding to a call, standard procedure." Sarah's voice cut through, calm but sharp. "Your procedure's about to get you fired." The cuffs came off, and Sarah flexed her wrists, red marks blooming where the metal had dug in. She didn't rub them, didn't wince, just picked up her ID from the ground and handed it to Dillon. He scanned it, nodded, and handed it back. "Ma'am, you injured?" Sarah shook her head. "Not the kind you can see." Dillon turned to the officers, his voice flat. "You stay here. Alexandria PD's internal affairs is on the way." Holt looked like he might puke. Carver just stared at the wall, like he could will it to swallow him whole. Sarah didn't look at them again. She walked to the black SUV waiting at the end of the garage, climbed in, and didn't look back. Inside, a young comms officer handed her a secure phone. "Joint Command, ma'am." Sarah took it, her voice steady. "This is General Mitchell. We've got a problem." The voice on the other end was crisp. "We've got the body cams, the garage footage, and the 911 call." Civilian tip was vague, no specifics, but what those officers did, that's on them. Sarah didn't nod, didn't sigh. "I want a full report, chain of custody on my belongings, and this routed through legal. No apologies, just protocol." She hung up, leaned back, and closed her eyes. The rain was picking up outside, tapping the windshield like a reminder that the world keeps moving, even when you're stuck. By the time Sarah got home to her townhouse in Old Town Alexandria, the adrenaline was fading, leaving a heavy kind of quiet in its place. She didn't turn on the TV, didn't check her phone, just poured a glass of water and stood at her kitchen counter, staring at the grain of the wood. Her wrist still stung, but it wasn't the pain that got her, it was the weight of knowing why this happened. She'd always known the world could be unfair, but to stand there, in a garage blocks from the Pentagon, with her clearance, her rank, her service, and still be seen as a threat, that hit different. Her phone buzzed, a call from General Tom Reynolds, a grizzled old Marine who didn't waste words. "Sarah, press is sniffing around. Someone leaked a tip about a high-ranking officer getting detained. They don't have your name yet, but they will." Sarah didn't flinch. "Let M." Reynolds paused. "You filing a complaint?" She took a sip of water, let the question hang. "No. I'm letting the system do its job. I want consequences, not headlines." He didn't push. "We've got your back, you know that." She hung up, not because she didn't believe him, but because she needed to be alone with her thoughts. Back at the precinct, Carver and Holt were sweating in a too-bright interview room. facing Captain Lino Ortiz from Internal Affairs. Ortiz didn't smile, didn't sit, just dropped a file on the table. Explain why you ignored a federal officer's identification and cuffed her without cause. Holt stammered. She didn't look like mean. We didn't know. She was in a hoodie. Ortiz's eyes didn't move. She gave her name, her rank, offered ID, and you kept going. What? Carver leaned back, arms crossed. It was a call about a suspicious person, black SUV, vague description. We acted on what we had. Ortiz flipped open the file, slid a still from the body cam across the table. Sarah, hands up, calm, her ID on the ground. You had this, and you ignored it. That's not a mistake, that's a choice. Carver's jaw clenched, but he didn't answer. By the next morning, both were on leave, and the department was drowning in calls from reporters. Sarah didn't watch the news. She didn't need to. She wrote a statement, short, sharp, like a blade. I didn't ask for special treatment. I asked to be seen. I complied. I identified myself, and still, I was cuffed, searched, and humiliated for existing. This isn't just about me, it's about everyone who doesn't get a call to change the outcome. She sent it to a contact at the Washington Post, and by noon, it was everywhere: Twitter, Reddit, morning shows. People weren't just angry, they were shaken. Other veterans started sharing their stories, quiet ones, the kind that don't make headlines, but cut deep. A black colonel who'd been followed in a store, a Latina captain questioned at a gas station. Sarah's story wasn't quite was a The air was cool, the cameras still humming overhead. She pulled out her phone, snapped a picture, not for Instagram, not for proof, just for her. Because that spot wasn't just where she'd been disrespected, it was where she'd held her ground, where she'd won without raising her voice. In her journal that night, she wrote, I did everything right, served my country, earned my stars, and still, they didn't see me. But I saw them, and I'll never forget. So here's the thing: what do you do when the world doesn't see you for who you are? Do you scream, fight, prove them right? Or do you hold the line, let the truth do the talking? Sarah chose the second, and it changed everything, not just for her, but for a department, a community, maybe even a country. And if you're someone with a badge, a gun, or any kind of power, ask yourself, are you listening, or are you just looking? Because the next Sarah might not have a smartwatch, might not have a title, might not have 10 minutes to wait. So what's your take? Was Sarah too calm, too forgiving? Should she have sued, shouted, made it personal? Or is her way quiet, steady, unrelenting, the kind of strength we need more of? Drop your thoughts in the comments, share this if it hit you, and let's talk about what justice really looks like when the cameras stop rolling.